a smiling teen, a missing child, a disturbing diary entry. When Alyssa's 9-year-old neighbor vanished, police had no idea they were about to uncover one of the most chilling motives ever written down. Because Alyssa didn't just kill, she planned it like a game. I still remember how ordinary that October afternoon seemed in the small town of St. Martin's, Missouri, the kind of place where kids ride bikes until dark and doors are left unlocked without a second thought. That's what makes this story even harder to believe. On the evening of Thursday, October 15th, 2009, a little girl named Elizabeth Olten, just 9 years old, vanished while walking home from a friend's house. She had only 1 block to go. 1 minute she was on the path. The next, she was gone. Her family panicked almost instantly. Elizabeth was afraid of the dark. She wouldn't just run off. Her mom reported her missing that same night. Police responded quickly. Flashlights searched the woods. Helicopters flew overhead. K-9 units were brought in. But there was no sign of Elizabeth. No struggle, no scream, no trace. But someone nearby had already buried the truth. Literally. Now here's the first twist. The girl who killed Elizabeth, she was helping search for her and acting like nothing happened. Can you imagine that? A teenager standing next to worried neighbors, pretending to care, while knowing exactly where the body was. Let's go deeper. Alyssa Bustamante was 15, blonde, blue-eyed, and raised by her grandmother after her parents' struggles with drugs and prison. To the outside world, she seemed like any troubled teen, quiet, moody, emotional. But online, she was a completely different person. On YouTube, she posted videos where she and her younger siblings would fake electrocutions for fun. In one video, she filmed herself and said she was feeling homicidal. Was it a joke? At the time, maybe, but looking back, it's almost like a warning no one took seriously. Her profile was filled with words like sadistic and obsessed with killing. One of her bios simply read, "I know I'm going to hell." And yet, no one saw it coming. Not the school, not the family, not even her closest friends. She had scars on her wrists from self-harm. She was seeing a therapist. She was on antidepressants. But no one thought she could do something like this. Until police started asking questions. Alyssa told officers she'd seen Elizabeth the day she vanished, said she saw her walking past the woods. Innocent enough, but something about her story didn't sit right. Her answers were too rehearsed, too calm. And then came a chilling clue. Police found a small journal in Alyssa's room, and in it, something that still makes my skin crawl. She had written, "I just killed someone. I strangled them, slit their throat, and stabbed them. It was amazing." As soon as you get over the "oh my god, I can't do this" feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. Then, right after that, she added something even more terrifying. "I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I gotta go to church now, lol." She actually crossed out the original entry as if trying to take it back. But it was too late. The truth was out. The motive was real. And it wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was curiosity. She wanted to know what it felt like to kill. But it gets worse. In her backyard, police found not one, but 2 shallow graves. Only one was used. So here's the question. Who was the second one for? The discovery of those 2 shallow graves behind Alyssa's house changed everything. Investigators were stunned. She had dug them days before the murder. This wasn't a moment of rage. This wasn't impulse. It was planned, thought out, cold. And that second grave, that's what haunts people. Was she planning to kill again? Was it meant for her little brothers or sisters? A stranger? Or had she not decided yet? One detective said something that stuck with me. It felt like she wanted to be a serial killer, like this was only the beginning. And the more they uncovered, the more it looked that way. Alyssa kept a journal of her darkest thoughts. She fantasized about death, about pain, and she hid it all behind a normal looking teenage life. She went to school, posted selfies, texted friends, all while writing about what it might feel like to end a life. And then one day she stopped writing about it because she actually did it. On October 15th, Elizabeth Olten left her friend's house around 5 o'clock. She was carrying her pink cell phone, planning to call her mom as soon as she got home. She never made it. Alyssa, who lived just a few houses down, lured Elizabeth into the woods. No one knows exactly what she said, but she led her to a spot she already knew well where she had dug the grave in secret. There, hidden in the trees, Alyssa attacked. She strangled Elizabeth with her bare hands. Then, to make sure she was gone, she used a knife. It was brutal, quick, and terrifying. Afterward, she dragged Elizabeth's body to the hole, covered it in leaves and dirt, and walked home. That same night, she posted on her social media like nothing had happened. She joked, she smiled, she pretended, while Elizabeth's family sat awake, crying, waiting for a knock on the door. What kind of person does that? Once the journal was found, everything unraveled fast. Police confronted Alyssa. At first, she denied everything. But then they told her they knew about the diary, about the graves, about the blood, and something shifted in her eyes. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just confessed, like she had been waiting to. She led detectives into the woods, pointed at the exact spot, and said, "She's there." They found Elizabeth's body buried in the shallow grave, exactly where Alyssa said. It was heartbreaking. Her pink cell phone was still in her pocket. She had been buried like trash by someone she probably trusted. And then came the most chilling detail of all. Alyssa told them it was all because she wanted to know what it felt like. She called it amazing. In her words, not mine. Who says that? Who feels that? And if she hadn't been caught, would she have done it again? When news broke that 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante had confessed to killing 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten for fun, it didn't just shock St. Martin's, it shook the entire country. People didn't know how to process it. A child had killed another child just to feel what it was like. Reporters swarmed the small town. Satellite vans lined the streets. Neighbors stood in disbelief, watching as Alyssa was led out in handcuffs. And here's what made it all worse. Alyssa didn't seem upset. No tears, no breakdown, just a blank stare. The public was horrified, but psychologists, they wanted to understand. How does someone that young not just imagine something like this, but plan it, execute it, and feel good about it? Some said it was pure evil. Others said it was deep, untreated trauma. But either way, the damage was done. Elizabeth was gone. And now Alyssa faced something almost no one her age ever had before being tried as an adult for first-degree murder. In November of 2009, prosecutors made a decision that set this case apart. Alyssa Bustamante would be charged as an adult. They called it premeditated, deliberate. The planning, the graves, the motive. It all pointed to one thing. She knew exactly what she was doing. In the courtroom, Alyssa looked small, just a teenager in shackles and orange clothes. But the details being read aloud were chilling. They played her YouTube videos. They read from her journal. They described how she had laughed when she confessed. Her defense team argued that she was mentally unstable, a product of childhood trauma, that she had attempted suicide before and was on medication. They begged for rehabilitation, not a lifetime in prison. But the prosecution didn't flinch. They said this wasn't just mental illness, this was cruelty. Curiosity turned deadly. They didn't want people to forget. A 9-year-old girl was gone. A family was destroyed. And all because someone wanted to feel a thrill. Throughout the trial, one item came up again and again: Alyssa's journal. It wasn't just evidence, it was a window into her mind. In her entries, she didn't write about guilt or fear. She wrote about excitement. It was amazing, she wrote, using that exact spelling. She even ended the entry with a smiley face. Then she crossed it out, but prosecutors said that only made it more disturbing. Like she knew it looked bad, but didn't actually regret it. And when psychologists dug deeper, they found something chilling. Alyssa wasn't just fascinated by death. She felt powerful when she talked about it. Her therapist later revealed that Alyssa had a long history of self-harm, depression, and violent thoughts, including dreams of killing her own siblings. And those two graves behind her house, they weren't a fantasy. They were a blueprint. As the trial moved forward, Elizabeth's family sat in silence. Her mother, Patty Price, never looked at Alyssa, not once. But the pain on her face said everything. She had lost her daughter, her little girl, and there were no answers that could make it better. During the sentencing phase, Patty finally spoke. Her voice shook. Her words didn't. She said Alyssa had stolen everything, that she had taken an innocent child, buried her like trash, and laughed about it in her diary. And then she said something I'll never forget. You don't deserve to breathe the same air. A courtroom full of people held their breath. And across the aisle, Alyssa's grandmother was crying too. Because here's the thing, she had raised Alyssa since she was a toddler. She had done everything she could. But now she sat watching the girl she loved be called a monster. How do you process that? When the victim and the killer are both children, there are no winners. In January of 2012, after years of legal battles and psychiatric evaluations, Alyssa made a decision that changed everything. She took a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and armed criminal action. That meant no trial, no risk of life without parole, but it also meant one thing. She admitted everything, no more lies, no more pretending. She stood in court, looked the judge in the eye, and said, "Yes, I killed her." The judge sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole plus 30 years. Some people were outraged. They wanted the harshest sentence. Others were relieved the family didn't have to relive every detail in open court. But here's what really struck people. Alyssa never gave a real apology. No emotion, no breakdown, just a quiet, "I'm sorry." And even that didn't feel real. It felt rehearsed, empty, like someone playing a part. Was it just part of the plea? Or was she truly numb inside? Now here's something that gives a lot of people chills. Even after being locked up, Alyssa Bustamante's online presence still lingers. Her old YouTube videos are still out there. Her MySpace posts, her selfies with black eyeliner and chilling captions. People watch them now like horror clips. In one video, she films herself walking on railroad tracks with her siblings, laughing, smiling. And it's hard to believe the girl in that video would one day plan a murder just to see what it felt like. Some of her old followers, people who once thought she was just edgy, have since said they feel guilty for not noticing the warning signs. One even wrote, "I thought she was joking. We all did." But looking back, the signs were there. We just didn't want to believe someone so young could be that cold. So here's the question. Was Alyssa born broken? Or did the world make her that way? After the sentencing, psychologists and criminal profilers began picking apart everything they could about Alyssa Bustamante. They wanted answers. The public wanted answers. Because why someone so young would kill just for fun is a question that refuses to sit still. Her background offered some clues, but not the full picture. She had a rough childhood. Her mom battled addiction. Her dad was in and out of prison. She'd attempted to take her own life before. She was on antidepressants. She had a history of cutting and writing violent thoughts in journals. But here's the twist. Most troubled teens don't become killers. Most kids with pain don't dig graves and plan murders. So what made Alyssa different? Some experts said she showed signs of borderline personality traits. Others argued she had antisocial tendencies. But the most haunting theory, that she wasn't emotionally dead, she just loved control. The thrill wasn't in the violence, it was in the power, the godlike feeling of taking a life and hiding it while everyone searched. That is what made it amazing to her. Let's go back to something we can't ignore, the second grave. Police never confirmed who it was meant for, but it raises a chilling question. Was Elizabeth just the beginning? During interviews, Alyssa hinted that she'd been thinking about killing for a long time. Not just once, not just Elizabeth. She said she was obsessed with the idea, that she had thought about killing her own siblings, that the temptation was always there, quiet but powerful. So when she dug two graves, it wasn't random. It wasn't a joke. It was a backup plan. And here's the part that stays with you. What if she hadn't been caught? What if she smiled her way through the funeral and waited for another moment to strike? That second grave is more than just dirt and leaves. It's the silence of something that almost happened. Amid all the focus on Alyssa, her motives, her mental health, her trial, it's easy to forget the heart of this story. Elizabeth Olten. She was 9. She loved to pink. She loved music. She loved texting her mom and playing with her friends. She was the kind of little girl who checked in when she was running late, who held her mom's hand in public, who made silly videos with her siblings. She had a future. She had dreams. And in a moment of unthinkable cruelty, those were stolen. Her family says they still celebrate her birthday. They still keep her room the way it was. Her name is carved in a small headstone not far from the home where her killer lived. A town that once felt safe will never be the same. And the hardest part, there was no warning, no build-up, no fight. Just a smile, a plan, a loss that never needed to happen. Alyssa Bustamante is now a young woman serving her time in a Missouri women's correctional facility. But time hasn't erased the questions or the eerie way she entered the public eye. She's eligible for parole after 30 years. That means one day she might walk free. Behind bars, reports say Alyssa keeps to herself. She doesn't give interviews. She rarely speaks publicly. Some say she spends her time writing. Others say she just stares off the same empty expression she had in court. But there's something unsettling about the silence. She hasn't shown signs of remorse in any official statement. Not real ones, not deeply felt. And even now, she hasn't explained why she felt the need to take a life. Was it for attention? For power? For thrill? Or is the real answer still locked inside her head? A place no one has ever truly reached. The murder of Elizabeth Olten by a 15-year-old sparked outrage, but it also sparked legal change. Missouri, like many states, came under pressure to review how juvenile offenders are treated in extreme cases. How young is too young to be tried as an adult? Should life sentences be allowed for teens? In the years that followed, the US Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life without parole for juveniles was unconstitutional. But that didn't undo what happened in St. Martin's. It raised bigger questions. Should we judge children by the same standards as adults when their crimes are this brutal? Or are we failing both victims and offenders by ignoring mental health until it's too late? Alyssa's case became a reference point in that debate, a symbol of everything the system didn't see coming, and a chilling reminder that sometimes evil doesn't look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a teenager with a smile and a notebook. Here's the question I keep coming back to, and maybe you do too. Was Alyssa Bustamante born with something dark inside her? Or was she made that way by pain, neglect, and silence? We want the world to be neat, good kids, bad kids, broken homes, simple answers. But this story isn't simple. This is a story where two lives collided, one innocent and full of joy, and one haunted, quiet, and watching from just down the street. Alyssa didn't snap. She planned. She waited. And when the moment came, she chose to act on her worst thoughts. That's what makes this case so hard to look away from, because it wasn't chaos. It was calculation. It's been more than a decade since Elizabeth Olten was taken from this world, buried in a shallow grave by someone she likely trusted. But her story still lingers quietly in the corners of the internet, in true crime forums, in classrooms discussing criminal psychology. And every so often, a new case pops up. A young person, a brutal act, a motive that makes no sense. And people ask the same question. How? How does a kid with no criminal record, no obvious signs of violence, suddenly do something so final, so evil? Alyssa's case proved one thing. The warning signs aren't always loud. Sometimes they're whispers scattered across social media, scribbled in journals, buried beneath fake smiles. And if no one listens, someone like Alyssa might slip through again. We think of monsters as adults as people with long criminal records and dark pasts. But what if the next Alyssa is sitting in a classroom right now, laughing with friends, posting TikToks, looking completely normal? That's what makes this case so terrifying. It wasn't just a murder. It was a mirror showing us what we don't want to believe. Sometimes evil wears a teenage face. Let's be honest, most of us want stories like this to have clear endings, justice served, lessons learned. But this case, it doesn't offer that comfort. Elizabeth is gone. Alyssa is behind bars, but closure, that's harder to find. Her family lives with a hole in their hearts that can't be filled. And the world is left with a diary entry. 3 words burned into the collective memory. It was amazing. We may never fully understand what happened inside Alyssa's mind, what turned a teenager into a killer. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the real question is this. If no one had found that journal, if Alyssa had buried the truth just a little deeper, would we even know who she really was? And that's the part that stays with me. Because evil doesn't always hide in shadows. Sometimes it's smiling right next door.